So much. And joining us now is Sara Nelson, International President of the Association of Flight Attendants, and Gary Quesenberry, a retired federal air marshal and personal safety expert. Great to have both of you. Sara, you represent 50,000 flight attendants. Why are we seeing this big influx in passengers behaving badly now?
Well, look, this is a whole host of issues coming together. First of all, we're coming off of the pandemic. Everyone is stressed out. Prior to the pandemic, we saw inequality rise, and we only saw that continue to rise over the course of the pandemic and since. When people walk onto an airplane, they're seeing big seats at front. They're walking through the airplane and actually physically experiencing the inequality of America as they get to the back, where there's barely space for themselves and no space for their bags, certainly, or any of their belongings. So people are coming to the airplane stressed and stressed out. And we have less staff than we've ever had. Flight attendant staffing is at minimum. We used to be staffed 25 and 50% more. Staffing at the gates are at minimum. So oftentimes people are not actually interacting with an airline employee until they're up in the air. You add alcohol to the mix. If they are drinking in the airport before they get on their flight, they don't understand how that alcohol is going to affect them when they get up in the air in a pressurized cabin at 8,000 feet with less oxygen. And all of this is a recipe for disaster, especially when you have humanity crammed in together in these metal tubes with every single flight full and very little for the crew to be able to do to calm people. I do want to just note, though, that the vast majority of flights take off and land without incident because of the incredible work of flight attendants in de-escalating conflict.
Yeah, a lot of these videos that have gone viral have actually shown flight crews that have handled it really, really well. Gary, physical assaults on airplanes are up 61%. I mean, they're still rare, thank God. But why are these altercations now turning physical?
Well, I agree with Lisa. Like, it's a combination of things. And I believe that there's a lot of elements that go into the physical altercations. People are frustrated. And I think in order to correct this, it's on the airline to kind of take some sort of an action. Law enforcement can only go so far in stopping these type of things, and that's usually a reactionary process. So once it happens, then law enforcement gets involved. So I think there needs to be a more proactive approach.
Like what, Gary? Like what can airlines do to crack down on this that they're not already doing?
Well, it's increased so much since the pandemic. I would like to see a little more enforcement of the fines and things like that. I would like to see it made perfectly clear, like they were talking about earlier, how the pilot got on and gave a little bit of a lecture about how people are supposed to act and treat each other.
Yeah.
That's something you should do for a 7-year-old, not a grown person on an airline. So I would like to see that kind of printed up front. Whenever they purchase the ticket, they have to acknowledge these are the rules and these are the penalties if I break these rules before they purchase the ticket, and then enforce those fines. You can be fined up to $37,000. That's quite a hit. And if people start having to suffer through that financial burden, I have a feeling it would correct some of the behavior you're seeing now on the airplanes.
Sara, do you think that would help?
So we actually lobbied for those fines and penalties. People can also spend up to 20 years in jail if they're interfering with the duties of crew members. And we pressed the Biden administration to move forward swiftly with prosecution. DOJ has stepped that up. They have an MOU with FAA, who's conducting a lot of these investigations, and put in place, based on our urging, a zero tolerance policy to this, which allows them to take the most egregious cases, put them to the top, make sure that they're not timing out. Getting that information then over to DOJ, which it will facilitate making the process go more quickly to get that into a courtroom and have these penalties actually enforced. When people are sitting in jail and that's reported on and the consequences are very clear, Gary's right. We have to be very clear about what the consequences are up front. Some of the airlines already do have these notifications when you buy the ticket, but a lot of people will click through these things very quickly. So repetition is very important. Signs in the airport, announcements in the airport, much like you heard Janet Reno all over the airports after 9/11 saying, see something, say something.
Right.
We need to teach the public exactly what to do, what the rules are, what the consequences are if you do not follow them. And also we need to ask people to be helpers. Most people want to have a safe, uneventful flight. We need them to put down their phones, look the flight attendants in the eye, let them know they have their backs, and be on the lookout, be ready to be good witnesses, and only jump into any interaction with someone who is starting to create a problem if there's a potential of imminent danger to any individual person. Otherwise, get the attention of a flight attendant who is trained to de-escalate these situations. Hopefully it won't come to blows.
Right, either a flight attendant or somebody like Gary, who is a former air marshal, but they're not on every flight, sadly. Anyway, Sara
I'd love
Nelson.
Gary to be on every single one of my flights, by the way.
Yeah. Sara Nelson, Gary Quesenberry, thanks so much. Good to have you both on the show tonight. Really appreciate it. Coming up.